Right, what is going on? So, we're back, and it is my rest day today, so I am filming a Q&A. We're going to answer some questions for you guys, obviously based on PEDs as usual, because that's what everyone wants to know about. So, put a poll up on Insta, and if you guys like this type of stuff, I will do it again for another time a little bit later in the month. We'll get some more questions put together and go again. So this is a very broad question, but timing, doses, length, health markers whilst on blast. And obviously that's very broad, but I'm going to assume it could be talking about myself, and I know that other people wanted to know as well. So let's get that out of the way first. So at the moment, post-show, I'm sitting nice and low on my total androgen load at 1150, so 1150, made up of 750 test, 400 MAST-D, and test-D. I do my shots. I do 5 a week. I try to do every night, but I just can't. So I give myself 2 nights a week where I don't have to fucking think about it. So I basically just split my shots up to do to get through that 750 test, 400 MAST for the whole week. I actually have a separate vial, and I just draw up what I need, which is 3 mils of test, 2 mils of MAST, and I draw that, and I put all that into a separate vial that sort of then mixes together, and I then just take that 5 mil divided by 5, and that's my daily shots. That's how many mil I take per day, and then I'll split that across 2 sites, so that like I might do right shoulder, left shoulder, so that it is a lower amount that I'm doing at any given time. So that's the androgens. So then pre-workout subs, I'm currently using Increlex and Cialis 10 milligrams. Increlex is like, I'm trialing 400 micrograms pre-workout. Cialis 10 milligrams pre-workout, and injectable L-carnitine at 300 milligrams pre-workout. And that is all on that side of things. And then also 10 IU of growth hormone. It is generic at night. So that's what, along with ancillaries of telmisartan, metformin, and nebivolol as well. I'm sort of going through a trial period with the nebivolol. I've been on it for a long time. I've had it for over a year. I came off it during prep, and I went back on it after prep. I've been finding that once I've had it in, I'm holding a lot of water, and my weight is shooting up. So I'm going to trial, putting it out, taking it out, seeing if that changes, and see how health markers and things move, to see if it's worth having it in or not, because I've got, I get edema when I put it in, and I just hold more water and my weight shoots up. In my opinion, it's from all I can theorize is the reduced heart rate. Obviously, it's slowing your heart rate down, which kind of is going to reduce metabolic rate. So it actually kind of works as a plateau breaker for scale weights, because as soon as I put it in, the scale just starts going up. Because I am someone who's quite fidgety and higher heart rate from just anxiety, so it can actually be used as a anti-anxiety drug as well. But I'm more calm when I'm on it, and not like it affects you mentally, it just affects physically. Your heart rate is slower. So I'm not as fidgety, I'm not moving around as much, and I burn less calories, and I then hold more water, and I hold more water, and it doesn't feel very nice. So from what I've seen, it's from that. So I'm going to drop it out and see if it's worth keeping it out or just keeping it in, because it is something that is still, when you're a larger bodybuilder, good for blood pressure and your heart health in general. Other health markers, I haven't done bloods yet, so I'm unsure. But I imagine they're going to be fine. Creatine, is it beneficial for enhanced athletes? Doses 5 grams or 10 grams. So I like to dose it mostly 5 or 10 grams. I really don't think it's that important. Personally, I take 10. But yes, just because you're enhanced doesn't mean that you shouldn't take creatine. It is doing something completely separate that any androgen or other PD is going to do for you. And it's the, best supplement that we can take, basically. On TRT, but have some water retention in lower legs. Any recommendations? Yeah, absolutely, man. So keep hydration up. So that means water and electrolytes. Make sure you're salting your foods, you're getting enough potassium from your foods, you're eating potassium-rich foods. Make sure you eat your spinach, eat your potatoes, eat your bananas, eat your dates, things like that. Getting plenty of water in per day, keep your steps up, and don't get too fat. And that's the best thing you can do. Some people are more prone to it than others, but that's pretty much all you have to do. As long as you're not getting any type of obvious constriction of blood vessels and stuff like that in the feet as well, I wouldn't worry too much about it. But that's what you can do in an immediate sense in the short term to fix it, especially if that's the reason you're holding the water. 10 ml grapeseed oil is 81 calories. Do you count it in weekly macros? So in case anyone didn't understand that, this guy's obviously referring to the grapeseed oil as a carrier oil in your injectables. Is a certain amount of calories. Should we count that in our weekly? Probably not. I probably wouldn't worry about it. but it's a real thing that does that we do metabolize it still. Best cycle for a cut. I mean, it's the most vague question you can get, and there's so many things that go into it. Obviously, there is no best cycle for a cut. Opinion on taking pre-workout while on cycle in relation to potential cardiovascular issues. I think that's a good question to explore within yourself, whether it's worth it or not. Personally, there's nothing wrong with taking pre-workout, but excessive caffeine use, aside of cardiovascular issues, I don't think is worth doing. You know, the vasoconstriction and the more adrenal fatigue we get from it is not worth the little bit of energy. Like, it's almost everyone who has become more dependent on caffeine, who I've gotten to stop taking it, has started feeling better after you get over that initial slump. It's like, this is so much better. I take very little caffeine at all now. If I have any, I have a small, like, I'll have a coffee before I train, and I'll just have 2 spoons of an instant coffee, and that's it. I'll drink that before I train. That's the only coffee I have. And then some days I'll get home from training and have another one while I work, which I'm sitting probably somewhere around that 150 milligram of caffeine per day, and I'm a 120 kilo dude. So I would be limiting caffeine use to 200 milligrams in general for anyone. I just really don't see any type of efficacy over that dosing. And the cardiovascular issues are going to come into a little bit more, it is a little bit more down the road. I don't think caffeine is directly affecting that negatively, unless you're absolutely smashing it. But there has been plenty of evidence to show that small amounts of caffeine can actually help your health, and caffeine is a good drug, but it is just used in excess and is unnecessary. And in those instances, yes, I do think it is more harmful than good. Managing creatinine in heavily muscled individuals. Is there anything we should be doing to circumvent this? I don't expect any athlete or any bodybuilder, like you said, heavily muscled individual, to have a perfect creatinine score, especially if we're getting bloods tested while in the middle of a mesocycle at some point. And, even after a rest day, we can see those levels elevated for days and days after. And it is influenced largely by your muscle mass and also, the use of creatine too. So we don't want to be overly concerned with just that in and of itself, but this is why we typically get bodybuilders to check their cystatin C as a much more accurate reading of our kidney health, whereas something like EGFR is taking it based off creatinine, which again is influenced by having lots of muscle and being a larger person in general. And then also, if you're training quite hard, it's going to go up. Long-term Clen usage. Victor Black talks about it being less harmful the longer you use it. Well, I'm not going to take anything Victor Black says as gospel, but I have seen or heard nothing about it being less harmful the longer you use it. That does sound kind of stupid, but I haven't seen any research on it. So I'm not going to say that that's straight away wrong, because I haven't seen it. However, Clen usage long term, I think it depends what you're meaning by long term. Like, if you're meaning over the course of a whole off season, I don't think it's necessary. I mean, the most I've seen is, we can only really go off what we see in studies, and there was a study done based on, I believe it was astronomical dosages of Clen. It was like 12 weeks conducive at something like 700 fucking micrograms, sorry, per day. It was fucking nuts, like shit that no bodybuilder would do. Yeah, it was like 700 fucking micrograms of Clen per day for 12 weeks, and I believe it concluded no increase in left ventricle, and no worsened ejection fraction. I believe that was off the top of my head. So there was no ventricular hypertrophy. Again, 12 weeks. Some would consider that long-term usage. I mean, I would say save it for your fat loss, save it for your prep, use it for a particular amount of time, whatever is needed to get to the shape or condition that you want to be in, and then come off of it. I've seen people also use nebivolol at the same time. Obviously, nebivolol being a beta blocker, clenbuterol being a beta receptor agonist. Nebivolol does work on beta 1, it's a little bit more selective, and clenbuterol is a beta 2 receptor agonist. However, it would still impair the use or the efficacy of the clenbuterol, which some people do that to sort of combat it and avoid any potential issues. Personally, I've never had any issues. I've never had any clients with issues. I don't see anything wrong with just using it over the course of the time that you need it. I wouldn't suggest long-term use unless they came out with a bit of data, or maybe there is some data I just haven't seen on really long-term use, if that's what we're talking about here. But in terms of just a fat loss phase or a prep, I think it's completely fine to run the entire time, and you don't need to reduce it. You're going to get a down regulation of the receptors to that stops the jitters and the shakes, but it doesn't mean that it's not working. Thoughts on EQ? Never used it due to red blood cell count issues and high blood pressure, but curious to hear your opinion. Yeah, this is a good one. Now, EQ has been somewhat demonized because there's been some studies come out around potential renal toxicity, and I think there's also been some more studies that almost combated that, or almost not necessarily disproved it, but suggested that the effects were actually quite minimal. So there's some people that think it's fucking brilliant, and some people think that it's the devil. So EQ is a funny one. You can see a lot of separation there. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with using it, providing that the individual's health markers are staying in check, essentially. So exactly what you said, the red blood cell count and your typically hematocrit will see rise, and then blood pressure as well, which is something that we would obviously largely want to avoid. So if that's happening, it's honestly just not worth it enough as a compound to keep in if that is happening. Can it do a decent job? Of course it can. I remember I did take it quite a bit when I was starting out. It was just big back then. Like that's what a lot of bodybuilders took back then. So I did run it back then, and I mean, I got great gains. I still think it's awesome. I think it's an awesome compound. It works. But I don't think it works better than anything else, like Masteron or Primo, that you can use with very minimal adverse health effects or risk of potential health effects as well. So I don't really think it's worth it as a whole. But if you're not getting any reduction in health markers, and you like it, then absolutely, I think it's cool. Can also, a lot of people start to struggle with anxiety on it as well, and that's something that I did find with myself as well. Once I was on it, I definitely had more anxiety, and that also didn't help with my blood pressure. What is the best beginner-friendly PD? Cialis. How do you manage hair growth and skin while on PDs? Guide to staying healthy on PDs. So that's a very obviously broad question as well. Staying healthy on PDs is all about staying the same way that we stay healthy in every aspect of life. You stay active, you stay relatively lean, you eat very good nutritionally dense foods, we get enough antioxidants from ideally food intake, we take our health supplements, we check our health markers regularly, and that's kind of about it. And also we take an androgenic load that obviously taking any type of androgens in general is putting your health further at risk, and it is deteriorating your health to a certain degree, and we just do everything we can to minimize that. So we take dose relative amounts that are good for us, right? And is not going to be too high based on our current level of experience, muscle mass, and goals. This is what a needs analysis is, right? We establish how much muscle you have, where you want to get to, the risk you're willing to take, and that in turn allows us to design a cycle or a stack that is aligned with all of those things. And to stay healthy, like I just said, it's just about it's really no different than staying as healthy as you can outside of it. And also there may just be some more pharmaceutical intervention in play to help medicate and mitigate against these adverse health effects and side effects that may arise. Exact cycle with dosages to become Mr. Olympia after my first year of training. Blast and cruise or cycle on and off. So I would always blast and cruise until the point of wanting to come off either indefinitely or for something like fertility reasons. And even then I would discuss with a fertility doctor mostly, and you'll most likely be kept on something like a TRT dose anyway. But I would much prefer see athletes keep a certain amount of testosterone in, just at a physiological level. If they need to come down to a maintenance phase or to a health phase, something like that, to take a break or to regain health markers, whatever it is, come down to a physiological level of testosterone and then increase it back up when wanting to blast again or go transition back into a growth phase. But I really don't see any reason in coming off. It's pretty outdated at this point to just come off and try and do a PCT and then just to take it again and reduce your test levels back down after you spent that time trying to turn them back on. Personally, I actually a few times have come off gear altogether. Instead of cruising like I should, I've just come off and just gone off everything. I've done that quite a few times across the last year or so. Last 2 years, when I was going to take a break, I just came off everything and really relaxed. And that's purely because I just hate doing shots. So is that the best thing to do? No, not at all. But I felt good during that period as well. Like I just felt healthier at the same time. If that's something that you want to do, I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with it. Is it the most optimal? No, not at all. It is not optimal to just have fucking pretty much depleted test levels for an extended period of time. But I would do it for like 6 to 8 weeks, something like that. So you only start to feel shit for a little bit. You don't really spend the whole time feeling like crap. It's only the last couple of weeks. But I wouldn't tell a client to do that unless they said it to me like, hey man, I want to come off completely and not take anything for this period. We're going to do a cruise or a maintenance phase or whatever. Then I would say, yeah, let's do that. That's fine. But also you have to really ask why you're coming off. And I think this is something that is a little bit more new. And that's, why are we going to a cruise at all if we're still progressing, we're not fat, and health markers are okay? We don't need to just go down to a cruise because we've been on for a certain amount of time. It's completely okay to be reactive to the scenario and the individual's athlete's current state. We don't need to just go, well, it's been 16 weeks, it's time to come off now. We want to actually make sure we're getting as much as we can out of every phase. And if we can be in a growth phase for longer, we can keep these things in for longer, that's going to end up in more gains by the end of the year. It's going to have more growth. You will have grown more muscle because you're in a better state, a more anabolic environment for a longer period of time because you didn't come off for no reason. Now, I don't want to encourage just staying on all the fucking time, but I want to encourage, obviously we're here for fucking results, right? So we want to do as much as we can, but if anything starts to skew or starts to slip, that's when we may need to pull off. So I've seen plenty of people push for 20 to 30 weeks. It's completely fine, providing that the health markers were all okay and we weren't getting too fat, and it's not a problem at all. I've had athletes push over 20 as well, push close to 30, absolutely. I've also had athletes, and myself included, that get around the 20-week mark and go, oh, this feels like shit now. Like things just start to fall apart because you've just been doing it for too long, and your body starts to fight back, digestion starts to go, and motivation starts to go. Everything starts to really stop clicking and you just go, I need to reset, fuck this, and you stop, you take a step back, you pull it out, you get a little bit leaner, and then we reset and we go again. That is all the questions I got for this time round. If you guys enjoyed this type of video, please let me know, and I will do another one a little bit later in the month. I like this type of shit because I like to be able to talk to you guys and explain some of this stuff to you, which I don't get to do a lot of this, like just straight information stuff. But this is what a lot of my clients get all the time, and what I enjoy to do as well. So if this interests you, please drop some questions below and I will save them for the next time I do one of these. If I get enough, I'll put another poll on Instagram as well. And if I get enough, I'll do another one. So I appreciate you guys for joining and coming along. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, all of that good shit. And I will see you guys in the next one.